You might have already heard about this. If you haven't, you should check out today's Malt Messenger newsletter. We've only put the festival tasting on sale, but there are master classes as well. Essentially, we want the master classes to go first to people who sign up for the festival. So until Friday, if you're interested in signing up for the master classes, I'd suggest getting a festival ticket. Everything will go online Friday, and then early bird pricing is in effect until Tuesday next week, August 13th. After that, pricing will all go up by about 10% for most of the tastings. We've got another Duméjan tasting, and some of you might be thinking, oh my God, another one? This one's kind of cool. I know Harmony's secretly thinking that. But there's bourbon, 2 Balcones whiskeys in it, Millstone Rye, a Kalila, and an Aussie malt. So we've got whiskey from all over the world for this one. And I've tried a number of them and they're good. So hopefully you'll join us for it. It's an inexpensive tasting. Then we've got Blinded by, that might have been some sort of Freudian slip when I saw the Diageo, Edrington, and Suntory logos there. Blinded by Scotch, IB versus OB. Evan wrote 3 paragraphs. I morphed it into one to save space. But essentially, we're going to pit famous distilleries against their alter ego independent bottlings, and we'll see how those go. I have an idea how they'll go, but I'm biased. We've got a grain tasting coming up. And then the last one that's currently online, and there will be more, this goes into later in October, is the signatory 35th anniversary tasting. They launched 3 Bunnahabhains that are 44, 45, and 48 years old. So they'll all be part of that tasting, including 32-year-old Highland Park and Mortlach. It's kind of a fun range. I think it'll be a good time. Anyway, enough about that. Oh, there's the tasting order again, because I think we did get a few stragglers. What I'd actually intended to put into the chat was the website link for tastings, but I'm pretty sure most of you know how to find them. Anyway, Harmony, anything you want to add before we get rolling?
No, I'm actually 2 things, I suppose. I am looking forward to the Duméjan tasting because it does have such a high volume of like ryes and bourbons. I'm excited about that, and I'm starting to ease off of my opinions on wine finished bourbons.
Ooh.
But also check out that grain tasting. I know Andrew just like breezed over it. There's a grain tasting and the next tasting, but check it out. I think it'll be awesome, and I think that old grain is great value. So
that was mostly due to my fear of dawdling on too long, as opposed to not wanting to highlight it. But yeah, everything in this tasting is 20 to or 21 to 31-ish years of age. So there's a lot of mature spirit in that range. Agree. It should not be, ignored or not treated as interesting. Anyway, whiskeys. We have 8 tonight. 4 pairs of 2 whiskeys rather. This all started with wanting to do a tasting to launch our new Linkwood and Glen, Blair Athol casks from Berry Brothers and Rudd, but not wanting to do the same thing over and over and over again. I believe it was Matthew gave us this idea. Essentially, we would pit things as head-to-heads. Now, some of these head-to-heads are not exactly fair fights. The second one especially pits, I think, a 15-year-old versus a 32-year-old or something like that. But it was more about trying to see the distillery style and character. It is still a heavily berries range, but I don't think that was on purpose. I think it was we wanted to have some fun contrasts and, to be able to put that blended malt 1999 back into a tasting, and the Glen Moray, our Glen Moray cask, but also that mature one. Regardless, it was a great idea. This one was not ours, although we did mold it a little bit. So we'll get rolling here. We got 2 Linkwoods to start things out. We're going to start with single malts of Scotland Linkwood from the Reserve Casks range, which are small batch bottlings. They're not single cask. They're also not cask strength, 48%. This is from 8 bourbon barrels, ex-bourbon barrels, bottled at 48%. It's a pretty good buy, $98 for a lovely Linkwood. But we're going to start off with that, and then we're going to pit it against our Barry's Linkwood. But let's lean in on the nose first on that one. What are we getting? Oh man, this is just like it's cream and fruit and custard. It
Yeah,
reminds me of
and
tapioca.
grassy.
What's that?
It's quite grassy for me
You know
as
what
well.
else? I mean, Harmony, or I don't know, I'm sure Doug would remember this. I'm trying to think how many people are of my vintage. But at the end of like the school year, we'd have this like those games outside where everybody gets a participation ribbon. And then you'd get those ice cream things with the wooden spoon built into the top.
Absolutely.
Smells like those ice creams, which either bodes well for that this whiskey or not for the ice cream. One or the other, I think.
Yeah. Evan says he's getting a little bit of cream of mushroom soup, and that was my first initial note, and I thought something was wrong with my glass before we started, and I just went around and smelled it like, no, it's all good.
So creamy and floral, but it's also really nutty. Like I've jumped ahead to the palate. I can't believe how nutty this is on the palate. Is that our
Oh
Jim
yeah,
Beam? Is this Jim Beam bourbon? Is that why we're going to like peanut brittle and peanut town?
it very well could be. Yeah, it's like roasted peanuts to me. Roast them, then you add the sugars on it, coat it, cook it. But there's still a nice like note of the grain in here, which is nice, and a nice kind of spice on the finish, kind of peppery ginger.
Brennan said, even thinking a light blue, white freezy. I'm going to one up you on that, Brennan. When I saw the word blue there, I immediately thought blue whales, like those soft candies. So maybe we're on the same path on that one. Regardless, I mean, this is a great bottling for the price for the ABV. Really digging it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very nice.
Did you add any water to yours for science, Harmony? Should we be doing this?
Sure.
This.
For science.
I gotta go find my
The single malts of Scotland range is all bottled for the reserve cask at 48, so I don't think water's going to hurt it too much.
Well, drop will do. So Linkwood, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, Speyside Distillery, kind of north and west of Elgin. Not especially kind to visitors, unless you go perhaps during Spirit of Speyside, maybe they'll let you in. But it is a workhorse distillery for Diageo. I was just looking at this. I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of about 5 million liters, almost 6 million liters a year production. Very floral spirit. And I always get this nice sort of floral pillowy note. I don't know how else to describe it, like even more like marshmallow, but without kind of the flavoring. And yeah, it's a distillery that I've certainly got a fondness for, that I love hunting for independent bottlings of. And yeah, the Diageo has done very little with. I mean, it predominantly goes into their blends, and they've released a handful of official bottlings, not including the flora and fauna releases. I think there was a couple of older 20-something, 30-something bottlings that have come out, but it's just not a distillery that they've ever promoted much. Harmony, how does water?
I think it dries it up. It's like a little bit more like dried potpourri, more like citrus rind, like the pulp of it all, and
It's spicier too.
spicy. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. The citrus is really, really big there. It's very spicy. I mean, I don't mind smelling potpourri. I don't know that I like drinking it. And now it's kind of potpourri-ish on the palate
It
for me.
is. Yeah.
So I would say no water. Water is not its friend. That's my personal opinion. You're all welcome to have your own. Shall we move on to the berries, the KWM Linkwood, the 2011 cask? Now,
Yes.
other than ABV, this is probably the closest parallel that we have in our tasting today, because this is close to the same age. It's also ex-bourbon, 56.5%, 12 years old. So it's a little older. But this is a single cask bottled at a higher ABV. It's not quite as nutty on the nose, but it's still got some of those nice floral tones and some citrus notes.
Kiwi for me.
What's that?
Kiwi. A kiwi fruit a little bit,
A
like
little bit of kiwi.
really overripe kiwi.
Yeah, I can see that. I'm getting a bit of melons, bit of orange, bit of those like Starburst fruit candies, but also like banana chips, like those dried sliced banana chunks. It's still got that sort of fluffy, pillowy
Yeah,
body to it.
there's a richness to the spirit. Like God, you said tapioca, and to me that kind of it's like taffy, like but the one that comes in the big metal pail with like 500 pieces that you get gifted at the holidays.
Man,
Right.
the palate on this is next level compared to the nose. Like the nose is pretty. I think the nose on the single malts of Scotland one, like before I added water, might have outshined this a little bit, but I don't think the palate comes even close. Like this is Jelly Bellies, Starburst fruit candies, both dried and fresh banana. Like there is so much fruit on this. It is soft and floral. It's juicy.
Mhm. The palate on this just goes and goes.
Oh man. Some nice spices creeping in there. Like some hot ginger, cinnamon tones.
Mhm.
Man, I don't
Yeah,
know.
it's all
I,
candy.
if you disagree, please say so. Not because I'm going to publicly shame you or ostracize you for being wrong. But no, I want to know if people don't like it as much because to me, I really liked that Linkwood, and I was worried that our cast wouldn't show that well against it. And I think it's
Oh,
banging.
yeah, I think the cast strength helps like open up the palate. I felt I agree with you. The nose on the SMOS seemed to be bigger than ours, but the palate just goes on and on. And I'm getting the fruit times 10 and the
Yeah.
melons and like, but I'm still getting the floral and I'm still um, getting the spices that are kind of the DNA of Linkwood here.
It's not as oaky as the SMOS bottling, and I think that's probably why I like it, is that you've got more spirit character coming through.
Yeah.
There is that toasted oak there. There is spice. It does have a faint hint of nuttiness, but really it's just that oxidated spirit that's been allowed to shine in this. And I think that's why it's sort of the star of the show. And Evan's Hogarden note is a good one. I haven't drank that beer since it was interesting, which was about 15 years ago. But I think you're probably bang on that. That combination of floral spice, a little bit of clove, is a cool note. But I think this is even more tropical than that. Like going back to that, a handful of assorted fruit flavored jelly bellies.
Cool. Good note. Good candy.
Mm-hmm. Um, some other comments on there. What have we got here? And whiskey is only part. Oh, okay. Jeff's on something something to do with nuclear energy. I'm sure it's interesting. I'm sure some of you are enjoying it. I'll have to just keep going. Sue's saying she added water and she liked it with water. You know what? In the interest of science, I'll try adding a bit of water to mine as well too. Though I am wary, I'll admit it. Just a single little drop in there.
Doesn't hurt it.
Doesn't hurt it.
More orange
It is more
for
orange,
me.
kind of going into creamsicle territory. I think I would probably still not add water to it, but it took water better than the reserve casks bottling did for sure. Moving on, Glen Murray, another Speyside distillery located on the outskirts of Elgin. We have a very lopsided comparison here of the 2007 KWM cask versus a 30-ish year old 1991 vintage Glen Moray bottling, also single cask, also from Berry Brothers and Red. Now, Evan, maybe you can chime in on the chat on this, but I seem to think that, like, for most of the staff, until this Linkwood came in, that the Glen Moray was the favorite. At least it was my favorite. I think it was Kurt and Sean's favorite. I can't speak to everybody else, but
Yeah.
it was kind of, you know, the star of the class.
Yeah, Harmony's been I think leading a big part of that charge as well.
Has
It's just been a really nice kind of sleeper for me, where it's like it's the most naked of all the Berry Brothers casks we had as well. Like, it's not the big sherry of the Tobermory. It doesn't go into those like heavy dessert like tones from the Vinsanto cask on the Delune, which I quite like, but maybe not everybody is looking for. And it doesn't go into the spicy edge that the Inchgour or the Rootmore does.
but well, I guess the taste is going to be the decider here. Has that Linkwood supplanted it? You kind of suggested that maybe for you it might have.
Yeah, I just think that Linkwood, especially palate wise, is just crazy good.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Because I, of the Linkwood and the Blair Athol, which we have yet to get to, I am a Blair Athol
Cool.
fan, which surprised me, actually.
Harmony, I think it's because you're slightly more ruthless than Evan and I, and you just like that little faint taste of blood in there. And a lot of those Blair Athol bottlings have got just like a little tinge of iron to them. So
yeah, it's probably my youth of being a hemophiliac. I just want all the blood I can get now.
That's right.
but secretly she's just a vampire, I think is
That's right.
is what's actually happening here. All right. On the nose, this Berry's Glen Moray. Well, let me put it up on the screen because we probably need some details here. Very floral. Glen Moray is, you know, and I just noticed there's something about a song Adam sings about Glen Moray, which you're going to have to get us a video of that. But let me put it up on the screen here. So Glen Moray, 1897, I believe, was its founding date. It's a workhorse distillery that used to be owned by Glenmorangie, just after Moët Hennessy Louis Vuitton bought Glenmorangie, which included Ardbeg and Glen Moray distilleries. They hived off Glen Moray because at the time it was kind of a grocery bottom shelf bargain basement blend, and it didn't really fit with LVMH's premium profile. So it was put up for sale. It was bought by a French company called La Martiniquaise. By all accounts, they've done some good things with this distillery. Sadly, at least in Alberta, I believe the only retailer that gets to play with official bottlings is Liquor Depot. Thankfully, and I've tried some of them, they're okay. Thankfully, the independent bottlings, including from the Society and all manner of independent bottlers, we've had a ton of great Glen Moray casks. And one of the things that really stands out to me about Glen Moray is that it has this profile that seems to take other cask types well. Like, it seems to do better in wine casks than a lot. And it could be how they're treating those wine casks, but we've seen a lot of Chardonnay casks, Glen Moray, especially from the Society and a handful of other independent bottlers. And I always thought this was kind of funny because Chardonnay is the chameleon grape. It's the wine that can be everything from champagne to like a buttery, toasty American Chardonnay. And Glen Moray to me is kind of the same. It can be everything from meaty and spicy to delicate and floral. It's this really broad, stylistic single malt. And I don't know that we're going to see that tonight. I think we have two very naked versions of it, but this 2007 cask that was bottled for us, 15 years of age, ex-bourbon, 53.6%. I've been a huge fan of this for a while. It's a toss-up. I think I'd have to do another tasting to pit this against the Linkwood directly to know which one I prefer, but I quite like this one too. Anyway, Harmony, what are you getting on this Glen Moray?
Just like functioning, like active bakery, tons of flaky dough, baked apples, like fresh icing sugar. Yeah, a lot of things.
I
There's
like
more.
that bakery note. Also getting like some apricot, like dried apricot. My original tasting note on this, I think it's bang on, has got this Quaker's Harvest Crunch thing going on. Maybe with some unpasteurized milk. I don't know if we're allowed to have that anymore. I remember seeing something about that in the news recently. Maybe with the little apple chunks as well.
Mm-hmm. The palate is nice. It like really drives home the nose for me. And then you get this like awesome dryness of like dry chocolate and kind of hints of coffee.
It's perfumed a little bit. It's very floral. The fruits that it has seem a bit, even though they're that lighter orchard, apricot, melon variety, they seem like they've kind of been stewed a little bit.
Yeah.
Cooked
Cool.
raisins. I don't know. I think I'm starting to lean Linkwood. I mean, I really like this. I really dig it. Maybe it's just that this is too light or not light enough. I think that Linkwood is that lighter, cleaner style, more of a summer whiskey. Maybe it's a seasonal thing. But yeah, I'm gonna have to put these two side by side. I think in another setting than this to really see. But Phil and Suzanne are on Team Glen Murray. Man, going back, I don't know. I think I'm on Team Linkwood. Regardless, we have put this up against a formidable opponent. It'll be interesting to see if it even remotely can hold its own, because it's going up against a 1991 30-ish year old Glen Murray. The reason we say 30-ish is Barry's doesn't tell us the bottling date, and they don't put the age on the bottle. We just have the bottling year. So we can't be specific about the age of this, but we have here a hogshead cask matured. And again, we also don't know if it's first fill or refill, or if it was sherry hoggy or an ex-bourbon hoggy, but we can weigh in on that in a second. 55.7%, has a pretty decent little whiskey-based score. And this is one that we were able to get about 5 cases of exclusively. Harmony, what do we think about the Glen Murray 91?
It is like creamy and floral again. I get more like melon than like that apple strudel that I did the first time, but I think I'm getting kiwi again and like tons of like honey. Like it's like honey buns.
It's funny how similar, and I know Matthew chimed in with something to this. This is older and it's more mature, and you can tell that on the nose, but you can especially tell it on the palate. But it is interesting how similar they are. Like they're both kind of kissed by this American oak, honey, vanilla. They both have these really nice light fruit tones. They're still floral. But yeah, wow, this, especially on the palate, it's so expressive. Like this isn't just orchard, this is going well into the tropical. Papaya, grilled pineapple, persimmons.
There's I like a little bit more spice on the finish of this one. Like your cinnamon and almost like anise.
Yeah. It's waxy as well. I mean, there's all these hallmarks of kind of well-matured older whiskeys that, have been allowed to express themselves naturally, that weren't rushed, that weren't finished. Yeah, this is a lovely, lovely single cask. Just checking some of the other comments here and questions. The ABV for the age harkens GM. I think he said GM, GNM. Okay, I'm following along here. Doug's saying the 91 is stunning. Then there's some conversation about math. Someone's, I think, once said math is hard, which turned out to be a rather poor comment. But I just think it's that a lot of these companies, I don't know, maybe they realize that these bottles won't get sold within a couple of years. So people, we have that issue with consumers where they're automatically thinking, oh, 1991, this has got to be 33 years old. And it's like, well, not exactly. Depends on when it was
Right.
bottled. But regardless, yeah, the nose on this is lovely. It's tropical, it's waxy, floral.
The finish is very different, I think, than the last
Oh yeah.
than the younger one, and it's got this like nice dried tropical fruit. Like you said, the dried apricots. I'm still getting that like dried fruit. And there's some like tannins there. The oak is really nice. Just like sits on your palate nicely.
I'm a little nervous to add water. I haven't added water to either of these,
Oh,
but again,
I don't want to. You go right ahead.
yeah, I will. I'm gonna give this a try. But I think that dryness and that more intensity on the finish, that's a hallmark of age. Like this has had more time in oak. It's had more time to absorb the tannins, the spices, all those elements of the wood. So I think it's quite natural that it would have that a little bit more body and a little bit more of an oiliness to it on the finish.
Yeah. Evan cautioned it's a bit more drying on the finish, especially with water. So if
So
you
the
like that,
2007, I added water to it. It takes water fairly well. Goes into more of like a toasted marshmallow, Marcona almond thing. Not sure if I like it better with or without. I would say probably without. That 91.
they're both lovely.
Man, I think that 91's a toss-up because it's almost like cloying like peanut butter with a drop of water in there. Like it's just the way it's clinging to my palate. But I think I've lost a bit of that tropical note in it. Like it's still tropical, but it's not as tropical. I don't know. Tim's saying chili spice on the finish with water.
Cool.
Anyway, Doug's saying a delicate 55, and I would agree with that. I mean, it even though it's higher ABV, I think the edges have all been rounded and polished. There's nothing all that rough about it. So approach it with water with caution. Now I'm just going to pull up here Blair Athol, 1798 in the town of Pitlochry, one of the oldest distilleries in the Highlands, still operating today. In fact, one of the oldest distilleries in Scotland, certainly amongst the 10 oldest for sure. Roughly 3 million liters. It's a very beautiful distillery. It is open to the public, even though they don't sell Blair Athol other than occasionally in the Flora and Fauna series or in a handful of one-offs that have been released. But the reason that they do have the distillery open to the public is that it's the home of the Bells blend. It's a beautiful old stone distillery just outside the town of Pitlochry on the main road. You can walk to it from the town quite easily. It's got beautiful ivy, I think. I'm not sure what it is. I'm not a botanist. It's got plants growing around it. It looks really pretty. Sometimes they're green, sometimes they have flowers. But you can go see it. I've never been to visit it because there never really was a need. I did try to get in there late at night once, kind of knock on the gate as it were, but no one let me in. I think they were ignoring me. Sometimes in Scotland, if your timing is right, people working through the night at the distilleries don't mind a little company and will let you in to have a look around. But has not come to be for me on this. I said earlier that I find a lot of Blair Athol bottlings have this little hint of an iron note to them, and I don't know why that is. Feel free to speculate. But yeah, as Doug said, it's a pretty little distillery. And the other pretty little distillery located near Pitlochry you're not allowed to see anymore is Edward. They closed it to the public. So Edredar is a great little town, or Pitlochry is a great little town. If you're going to go there and you can't see Edredar, why not stop in and see Blair Athol? And anyway, Evan's Donald Trumping my words and suggesting I said there's plenty of irony in Blair Athol. So there you go. We're going to kick it off with a boutique-y bottling of Blair Athol, which is kind of fun to bust this one out because we've not put this in a tasting for quite some time. And actually, you'll see the floral coverings of the distillery when I share my screen here and put it up. So this is the bottling here. It is batch 12, 21-year-old. What have we got here? A marriage of 2X bourbon hogsheads, distilled in 1997, bottled at an impressive 60.2%. And interestingly, because it doesn't say it on the label, I don't believe this is cask strength. They might have reduced this, that is the Boutique-y chaps, down to 60.2%, because typically when it's cask strength, they put NCS on it, or natural cask strength. And the reason for that is that Sam's approach to whiskey making is that he frequently will dilute bottles to the strength he feels they drink best, rather than arbitrarily reducing them. So about the label, and these are the clues here, it produces for a number of blended whiskeys, including Bell's, and you can see there's a bunch of bushes being trimmed into the shapes of Bell's because of that connection with the blend Bell's. What else have they said about this? This was distilled way back in 1997, bottled at batch strength. So there you go, not cask strength, as I'd mentioned. And curious, like, think about that. This has been in glass, glassed, as Angus would say, since 2019, 2018 or 2019. So this has been kicking around for a little bit. What do we think about this one?
It's kind of fitting the theme for me of apricots, honey, cinnamon, ginger, on the nose. It's got all of those things, nuttiness even on the texture for me. I took a sip, but doesn't quite feel as smell as creamy as the other ones, but still tons of fruit, spices.
It must be all that talk of iron, but I got a little hint of iron brew on the nose with this one. Maybe even a little bit on the palate. Definitely some kind of cream soda vibes shining through here. Very fruity, quite soft. Harmony, the folks at Boutique also suggested apricots on this one, so there you go. And Jamaican ginger cake. I don't know what Jamaican ginger cake is like, but this does remind me of a very British thing that one of our former employees, Abby, used to get brought from England all the time, called Jaffa cakes. It reminds me a little bit of Jaffa cakes on both the nose and the palate.
Evan says it's starchy on the nose and celery sticks too. I can see that starchiness.
There's this really tart kind of caramel spice thing going on. And dare I say it, I think there's that little tinge of iron in there again. It's not bad. It's not like a metal fork in my mouth, but, or, I suppose most forks are metal, but like when you get that little hint of iron from a fork. Dave Smith saying Holyrood threatens, what was it here? The chat moved up. Holyrood threatens to make Jaffa Cake whiskey during their Victoria Masterclass. There you go. Well, that would be something, I suppose. If Dave, to clarify, were they threatening to make whiskey that tasted like Jaffa Cakes, or threatening to distill Jaffa Cakes, in which case it probably would not be whiskey?
Gross. I mean, maybe it's good. Who am I to judge?
Blood plus Ocean Spray cranberry cocktail. I love it. Man, is Ocean Spray still a thing? Like, that seemed to exist in my restaurant days, which were like really just 7 months in the late 1990s while I was in university. That is not a thing I've heard in a long time.
I think it's a thing.
well water from the farm.
Oh, that's a really good note. Yeah,
You
well,
know,
that takes me back.
I don't have a lot of experience with well water from the farm, but I do have these horrific memories of playing hockey in Brooks. And I remember like the second you put the water bottle up to your mouth, before the water hit your mouth, you get hit by a punch of sulfur. Like it was insane. I was not used to that. And I think it gave the hockey teams in Brooks an advantage because their water was just so unpalatable for us visitors to actually consume.
So you're all plain dehydrated,
Oh, yeah.
underpowered.
Or you're like pinching your nose and like choking while you're trying to drink water to stay hydrated.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah,
Well,
this is
very
nice.
spicy.
It's the when I drink it and I inhale, I get this like super bright tropical fruit note. That's nothing in particular, but then yes, well water takes over for me. Um,
All right, let's go on to our other Blair Athol. This is the other KWM cask that we were hoping to highlight tonight. Now, again, it's got a bit of a hill to climb here because it is being pitted against a considerably older whiskey. This one is 14 years as opposed to 21 years of age. From also a hogshead, but in this case, we're not 100% sure if this is bourbon or sherry, though I do have a theory on that. We'll get to in a second here. Hogshead cask 8939, distilled in 2009, bottled after 14 years, 59.1%. 156 bottles, and I believe that was because we chose to take just half the cask. So we did not take the full outturn on this one. Chris, somehow I think your math is way off on that, but just saying. What do we get on the nose? Yeah, mustard is such a good call on that.
yeah.
So for me, I'm getting some chocolate tone spices. It's like red berry fruits, like cranberry, strawberry. The nose is a little shy. It's not initially quite as expressive as that last one, but see if we can tease it out.
In the chat, floral vinegar. Doug says honey mustard grenache.
Honey mustard ganache. That is not the sort of cake I think you serve to your children. I think you serve that to your children at your peril.
I don't know. Maybe
I mean,
they broke
I'm
the car
intrigued.
window for
I
the
would
bakery.
try it. I would hope that it had like a chantilly cream frosting or something at the very least. But that could be quite, and maybe chunks of ginger in it might salvage it a little bit, or just take it off the deep end of weird.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time pinning this one down, to be honest.
The palate on this is so spicy. Ginger, cinnamon, nutmeg,
Strawberries.
clove. It's peppery as well. Leathery and earthy. Like this to me, this has to be sherry hoggy. Like it's got way too much spice and it's like going into that dark fruit leather direction. Refill, I think. But yeah, as Jeff said, tired sherry is a good one. And just a little bit of that irony, rusty little note to it. Almost like a bit of a rusty nail cocktail too, actually. Which I don't think anyone drinks those. Did everyone who drinks rusty nails die? Is that
No, I know someone who drinks them.
Is that too rude? Is it too rude to suggest that they've all?
It's rude. It's rude. Like you're just the poor Thorpes are just taking a beating tonight.
I don't think we've had anyone ask for Drambuie in like 5 years. So
No, that's wrong. That's
that's kind
incorrect.
of the hallmark of the Rusty Nail crowd is they need the Drambuie.
Well, that's incorrect. We get asked often. We just don't have it.
Galliano.
I don't remember this tasting this way, and I wonder if it's because it got like pumped through and put into these little bottles. And when I had it, it was like fresh from the bottle pop, but it feels
Moved on.
different.
Ryan's moved on to Gleva. He wanted yeah, he wanted Drambuie, but he wanted it Methuselah Sherry finessed by Richard Patterson first. So I quite like it. I mean, it's different. It's really spicy. It's rich.
Finish is heavy and waxy.
It's very heavy compared to our Linkwood. I mean, this is a different end of the spectrum. But yeah, it's a big toasty, spicy dram. We've got lots of comments here on, I think I've triggered some people talking about Rusty Nails, so apologies on that. Sort of.
What? That's a thing, Tom? Never had that.
Galliano on everything.
Galliano floats.
Yeah, I mean, there's almost this like wine cask pepperiness to that Blair Athol now that I've added a drop of water, but more drinkable. Anyway, I like it. But that's a tough one to pit it against. In some ways, that might not have been a fair fight, putting it up against that 21-year-old from Boutique-y. But can we just go back to that and talk about that for a second? How the hell is that batch strength, which means they watered it down at 6.2%? It's not even cask strength.
Well, they added a teaspoon of water.
Dr. Whiskey did something to that. We're not quite sure what. Okay. All right, we're going to Blended Malt Town. So I really wanted to put this Barry's Blended Malt back into a tasting because I kind of feel like it's been underappreciated for what it is. This is probably an ex-Edrington blend. 1999, it's a single cask. It's a sherry bomb. And the reason I bring it up is because we've actually got our own cask of this coming realistically, probably maybe November, December. But in the interim, we've still got some bottles of a sister cask. Now, I'm not going to lie to you, the one that's coming is better. This is still a lovely cask. The one we've got coming, I think, is a little older. I think it's 25 years of age as opposed to 24. It says maturing in a hogshead 24 years. It's from a hogshead. I don't think it matured in there the whole time. Long story short, this is one of those parcels of blended stock that probably originate from the Edrington group. So Macallan, Highland Park, Glen Turret. This is old enough that probably Glengoyne, Tamdhu, some other malts, Glen Turret could be in it as well. Faintly sherried, probably married back at the time when they were experimenting. This was about 12 years ago. Famous Grouse was experimenting with putting out these blended malts that were, I think, 15, 20, 25, 30, 40-year-old, something to that effect. They put a pin in the project and the liquid was still there. It was already blended together. We've seen parcels of this from other companies. And yeah, these are just fun whiskeys, great value for the age, especially compared to a lot of stuff that's out there. They had sold Glengoyne by this time, Doug is saying, but Turret and Tamdhu could be in there. Probably some Glenrothes too. Interesting that Doug does say that because I think when I did my tasting note on this, I suggested that it reminded me of some good 20-something-ish sherried Glenrothes. but there's more to it than that because there is this like faint whiff of smoke in there as well.
Yeah, I get like a oyster shells, sort of coastal shells note, little sand and yeah, slightly vegetal.
Douglas, I might be able to correct you on this point. Glen was sold in 2003. So potentially this could be Edrington stock. So anyway. What do we think? I kind of jumped ahead to the nose. I didn't spend any time or the palate. What do we think about the nose?
Oh, yeah, for me it's very coastal. Um, there's some creaminess to it, but it's very coastal. Kind of nutty, chocolatey, which translates to the palate for me. That the palate is like so much chocolate, so many different ways.
Well, the nose is chocolatey too. It's got this nice kind of caramel chocolate note to it on the nose, a little bit of salted caramel.
Yeah, the nose to me reminds me of those there's like the Christmas like candy boxes of chocolates and nuts and stuff that you open, and just like the general box of all the mixed smells, and it's not the fancy kind of chocolates. It's a little off.
Yeah. I mean, so Purdy's, could we be talking about
Yeah,
Purdy's?
maybe.
I mean, look, Evan said it too, you've said it. Like this is chocolate and like more on that milk chocolate than dark chocolate realm. Like this is the people's chocolate. But it's tropical. It's got some nice caramel tones, a little bit of smoke and sea salt. Harmony, I ask you this. How the hell have we not sold out of this? Like this should be gone.
I don't know. I've put this in like multiple in-store tastings that I've done, and I don't know how it's still here.
I think we need to shame people into buying this when they come into the store because this is really
Right.
good.
If you want to sign up for the Rare and Old Festival, you have to buy this bottle.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's 6 years below the threshold. But
No,
damn,
that's just the entry for the festival.
it's chocolate, chocolate, chocolate. It's chocolate three ways, chocolate more ways.
Yeah, if you're thinking about gifting crappy boxes of chocolate at the holiday, don't buy a case of this and then hand it out.
Yeah. It's even got this nice like cayenne pepper, like chili oil heat to it, blended into the chocolate. Man. All right. Enough about that. We have one other whiskey to talk about, and that is the NAS 17-year-old from Decadent Drinks, bottled under the notable age statement banner. Let me just make sure I put this in the checks. I don't think I did. Probably missed that on a couple of whiskeys, but what are you going to do? So what have we got here? A marriage of two first fill sherry butts, bottled at 53%. So this is probably not, in fact, it's not at all like what we just had. It is a marriage of 2006 Altmore along with some 2001 blended malts. So it could be something similar in part to what we just had. The ABVs are curiously close. This one is 53% as opposed to 51. And it was, the intent was to create, what does it say here? An older style sherry matured malt whiskey profile designed to be easy, fruity, and highly drinkable with plenty of classical, earthy, elegant sherry character. So what do we think of this NAS 17 year? Smells like hot plastic. Oh, you know, Jeff, I'm going to one up you on that. It smells like going into, I don't know, it smells like getting off the plane in Mexico for me for some reason. And it's probably a mix of the heat, maybe the tarmac and the fumes from the plane, because Lord knows they don't have terminals. You got to walk outside in 35-degree heat with no shade. But then there's like some pretty flowers off in the distance that you're getting a little hint of as well. Tom says
It's like
cherries Jubilee, which is quite a contrast to hot plastic. Oh man.
it's like overboiled fruits, like black fruit, red fruits, just like
Triggers thoughts of Danish akkeviet. These are not the tasting notes I thought we'd be getting.
I'm yeah, I think we did this in a Decadent drinks tasting, and I remember being very verbal about my thoughts on this. So I'm gonna let you romanticize this 17.
I'll be honest, I like it, but it's weird. Like the nose, especially on this, is weird. Maybe it's that Altmore component. Like Altmore is not exactly a distillery that, you know, we taste a lot or that I've got a lot of context for. It's very overt sherry too. Like this kind of reminds me of, I don't want to say poorly done sherry finishing, but like when they sherry finish something and you know it's sherry finished, like it's just layered on.
Yeah, it's more sherry than whiskey, and it's not the good kind of sherry. It feels, for something that's 17 years, presumably at its youngest, it feels like a rushed whiskey. I didn't think about it coming together. It's very ashy on the palate as well.
It tastes like if strawberry Twizzlers could go bad,
They
which
lit it on
I
fire,
don't know that they can, but like if they could go off.
Simone said it's like licking a rock. I mean, that could be a good thing. They could be very mineral and salty.
It's settling down into some like barbecue meaty tones. Some nice chocolate there too.
Mhm.
I am not going to go out there and say this is terrible by any stretch. It's just, it's a little weird to me and it's a little unbalanced.
Does anyone, I mean, maybe Sammy can thumbs up, thumbs down this, but their tasting notes allude to rustic nod leaning towards Armagnac at times. Is this Armagnac like?
Well, the other note in there that they've got is camphor in their official tasting notes. And I could definitely get more of that than I do Armagnac. Some references to weird, which is the political watchword of the day, it would seem. Anyway,
Very interesting.
it's interesting. I don't think I'm
like
hiding anything by putting my cards down as to which of these two I think is better.
99.
It's pretty clear. Dave Smith says tastes like a pub floor in a good way. I mean, I would say that it tastes like some sort of weird Deadpool Ryan Reynolds reference tasting note. Like it's slightly uncouth and unpalatable, but also enticing and entertaining all at the same time. Shall we to the speed round? Evan, are you going to speed round with us or are you busy putting children's to bed? He might be busy putting children's to bed.
No, it's all good. I can speed round.
All right. So we've got 8 whiskeys to get through. We're going back to Linkwood. We're starting with the reserve casks. Water was added to many of these, not all, but most. What do we think about the SMOS Linkwood?
It's probably the cast strength talking from the last the other 7 whiskeys, but this one just seems so soft right now on the nose.
It reminds me of the plastic that you take off of children's toys from like the early 2000s.
I don't know what that means.
Well, it was unsafe, so that doesn't exist anymore. but
I'm gonna carry on with that, and it's the plastic wrapper that you rolled off of the fruit roll up.
that was definitely not safe. But
No,
it was so long ago that what are you gonna do? Harmony, any thoughts on that Linkwood before we go on?
It smells, yeah, like saltier than it did the first time, and maybe that's where that plastic note's coming from. The
But
fruit's kind of stepped down.
yeah, to Doug's point, it's still lovely. It's still a great dram, great for the price. And Brennan saying if this was 10% higher proof, I think it would be absolutely fantastic.
It has more like orange citrus to it now.
Mhm.
Like, what's like Sunny D orange, not the fresh orange.
KWM
like
Linkwood.
yeah.
We got to keep this rolling. What are the thoughts on the KWM Linkwood? It's floral, it's fruity, it's sweet, it's juicy. I think it's dynamite.
Yeah, I can't believe we still have this one, even though it's one of our more recent casks. It's
It
killer.
is, but I think we've sold half of it in a pretty short
Mhm.
order, so which is not too surprising. I for one think it's worth a few extra bucks over the other one, but that is just me. Now what's up next? Glen Murray. How does the Glen Murray fare? Oh, that's. I thought I was over this one, and I'm not.
It's going a
Yeah.
little bit fudgy, like in a good way, like white chocolate meets chocolate fudge.
Yeah, it's really cool.
It's like a Michelin star restaurant's deconstruction of s'mores, like
Mhm.
chocolate, marshmallow, graham wafer, and then there's these nice, sweet, fruity, tropical notes fading to the finish. It's got a really nice mouthfeel. I'm really torn. In a way, I want to like the Linkwood better than this, but I think this Glen Murray might still be better.
I'm trying not to drink them all just so I can blend them at the end.
All right, Glen Murray, 1991.
Ooh, it's really good.
That is the class act of the night for sure.
Yeah.
There's only one other whiskey. I'm not going to say which one it is just yet that I think has the elegance or close to the elegance of that. That is a banger. Kind of unfair to put those two head to head, but the fact that our Glen Murray shows as well as it does against that is kind of impressive.
To me,
Yeah.
it's crazy how little difference I get between the 91 Glen Murray and the KWM Glen Murray on the nose. Like there's so many similarities there.
Yeah, the noses are very close, but the palate, it's like the 91 is like warping into tropical fruit speed. And the other one, I
Mhm.
left the other one in behind. Both are great, but yeah. Anyway, bias is declared. I'm a whore for old whiskey. What can I say? Boutique-y Blair Athol, 97, 21-year-old. 60.2%, not even cask strength after 21 years.
Yeah, this is nose right now is like a concentrated or a fruit cup reduction on the nose.
And that's just kind of an all-around fun whiskey. Like it's not, it doesn't have the elegance of the Glen Murrays or the KWM Linkwood, but it's got a nice balance to it. For 21 years old, 195 bucks. I know it's a 500 ml bottle. I think that's a pretty damn good whiskey too.
Mhm.
I know you guys can't handle those 500 ml bottles or the comic jokes that are on the label, but I think that's a great value whiskey.
Yeah, I think so too. And I like the finish on it. It's a difference from the beginning to the finish, and I like the contrast and that juicy drying feeling. Like I want to drink more, but I'm also just waiting for the finish to end. Like, yeah.
The metallic note on it too is just intriguing. Like it's not off-putting or like out of place at
To me,
all
it's
for
more
me.
like lead, like pencil lead, pencil
Mhm.
crayon lead, even where it's not the full HB. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Lots of comments on the 500 ml bottles and how, and I mean, it's true. I think a lot of people can't figure out the math. And we did discuss at one point putting a sign on them that said how much it would cost if it was a 700 mil.
Mhm.
But A, that's a lot of work. And B, I was in a store the other day that had electronic, oh, it was a Canadian Tire that had electronic price tags. Half of them weren't working. So the future, it's I'm not sure it's going to be better. But anyway,
It's already broken, the future.
it is already, the future is already broken. It's true. It's already broken. We haven't even built most of it and it's already broken. Blair Athol, 14-year-old KWM.
Just love that strawberry yogurt note right now that it has.
Dude, Canadian Tire is the future. Have you not been to the one on 8th Street? You know what you want. It's already there. And nothing that you don't want is there. To be
That
honest,
sounds
I think,
more dystopian than utopian.
yeah, I've surrendered. I've surrendered to reality. By the way, I think that Blair Athol is drinking way better now than it was when we went past it the first time. It's nicely rounded. The spice is still there. It's very fruity. It has that little tinge of iron, and it's showing more of that like light sherry touch of like spicy fruit, Christmas cake, and chocolate.
It's showing this like the chocolate and strawberry like wafer cookies.
Ooh, that's a good call.
I mean,
And Evan, your yogurt note is bang on. Like this is
yeah,
it's an assorted fruit yogurt.
it's
Power.
strawberry pocky sticks, pokey sticks. I don't know how you
Oh,
say.
that's a good call too. Yeah.
Tim, you're correct. Canadian Tire doesn't have whiskey yet, but if our premier keeps ignoring her cabinet and everyone who's lobbied them, they might. Just saying. We're trying. But that's a different matter. We don't need to go down that rabbit hole. 99 blended malt. How about it? Oh man.
Yeah. It's like you're making hot chocolate on the stove and you just slightly burnt it.
But your stove is on an ocean shore because it's salty
Yeah,
and honey.
that's right. Yeah, your stove is a campfire on the ocean shore, I think you're
I
right.
was thinking, yeah,
Yeah. And you're drinking it not from a mug, but from an oyster shell.
yeah, yes, you are.
I don't know what else to say about that whiskey, but it's awesome. Like it is it has absolutely no brand identity to it. It is a 24-year-old 99 blended malt. And it's almost giving that 31-year-old Barry's Glen Moray a run for its money.
Mhm.
All right. Has it changed? NAS Blended Malt 17. There was quite a controversy over this one, a surprising amount of controversy over this one.
Evan, what do you think of
I,
this?
I like it. It's like people I think mentioned sulfur on it. It's like crazy caramel notes and like yeah, it's a lot of sherry, but I don't know.
Mhm.
I think
Tastes
it's
like
kind of like Lecheg. The weirdness just
tastes like
works.
German fetish Christmas. That is the official tasting note is German fetish
Yeah.
Christmas.
You say that as if it's a bad thing though, which I just don't understand.
I mean, there's a reason why
Do
Marty
you,
goes to Christmas every year for the markets. Like he doesn't tell us, but
Yeah,
there's a reason.
that's right.
am I supposed to Google that? I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, you can, but
It's
beware what shows up
yeah,
unasked for in your browsing
yeah.
ads
It's
once you type
yeah.
that in.
Yeah, long story short, nobody's eating that Black Forest cake afterwards.
Small. All right. Well, that got dark pretty fast. All right, we've got a vote. what is in that vote? We don't know because Evan often comes up with a clever, is there an extra question?
There is.
Of course
It's not
there
real
is.
melting plastic, is it? No, it's not.
It's not what's your favorite German fetish, is it?
It probably is.
No, it would be now, but yeah.
All right, well, I'm gonna launch the questions here. If you're not already that, is there a better indie bottler than Barry's tonight?
Right
Or
now.
Barry's right now? I think you're specifying specific to tonight's tasting, Evan, or just in general? Oh,
Just in general. Yeah.
wow. I mean,
Yeah.
it's an interesting question. There was definitely some omissions from the list.
Yeah, there's one specific omission with two
Names.
letters in it that couldn't be added.
Well,
Yeah.
that could be there. I could actually say there's probably two that could qualify for that. But anyway, Harmony, why don't ladies first? If you had to pick two favorite whiskeys from tonight's lineup, what would
I'm
they
gonna
be?
eat my words on our KWM Blair Athol being my favorite over the Linkwood. After the lineup and trying it this way, the Linkwood KWM Cask definitely outshines it for me. But my favorites, I think, are still our KWM Glen Moray. Not to say that the 1991 is not a stunner, but I can't afford it. I can't afford the Glen Moray to be on my shelf, so I vote for that. And then the blended malt #1 1999. I think I've put it in as many tastings as I can because I love just drinking it, and I think it's a beautiful whiskey.
Evan, same question.
I don't know, that Linkwood is just our Linkwood, sorry, is just killing it for me right now. I do really like the single malts of Scotland Linkwood, but it's not in my top three. There's a lot that's not in my top three that are still great whiskeys in here. Second is the Barry's Blend, the 1999. I just love that whiskey. And third, just slightly edging out our Blair Athol, is the Boutique-y Blair Ahtol. I think that is a fantastic dram.
Yeah. This is a surprisingly tough lineup to pick two, let alone three favorites from. Because I think that Boutique-y Blair Athol and our store Blair Athol actually showed quite well later, although I think the Boutique-y's got a bit of an edge on it, but that's the age factor. I really like our Linkwood cask, but I'm gonna have to go Barry's Blended Malt 99 is my favorite tonight. The Glen Moray 90 or the Glen Moray 91 from Barry's is #2. And the 15-year-old Barry's Glen Moray cask is my #3. I really wanted that Linkwood. The Linkwood is so good, it's so close. But man, that Glen Moray 15-year-old holds up so well. Yeah, it's a great dram. We'll check the polls in a minute. I did want to check in on Facebook. I haven't done that in a bit. Appears to be one person watching, no comments. So we'll kill the polls here. All but one of you have managed to vote. And if you were that one person, it is now too late. The winner of round one, favorite whiskey, I'll share the results here, is the Glen Moray 2007. The 91 comes a close second. The blended malt and the Linkwood tie for third, which is cool. And then second favorite, the Linkwood, look at that, storming to the front. And then the Glen Moray Blair Athol tied for second. I would say the interesting takeaway from this is that those two casks, the Glen Moray and the Linkwood, seem to be the overall favorites, I would guess, a bit from a value perspective. And then Evan's cheeky question, is there a better bottler than Barry's right now? Single choice. Barry Brothers and Red for Life ties with the single malts of Scotland and Decadent drinks, but don't ask me to pick a favorite. Child, give me indie bottlers or give me death is the winner. There you go. And one of the two owners of Whiskey for Us picked themselves. But good for you guys. Sorry, Kevin. I don't
What's
know
more
what
more
Jeff was
concerning is
thinking.
the other owner didn't pick it, which is I think that group is going to break up soon.
Wow, it's that's going to be a tough board meeting next time it comes around. Guys, before we wrap tonight, anything, I mean, we ran through this surprisingly quickly, but it seems like I don't feel like we rushed, but anything we didn't cover, anything we need to touch on before we wrap?
I don't think so. Beyond the fact that I think we need to do some more side by sides where we're comparing distilleries like this. A lot of the time, it's just like a hodgepodge of what we have in, based on the cask we have, which it totally makes sense. But it's really fun to see these distilleries done two different ways. So and that is kind of me pimping the blinded by Scotch tasting that's coming up, but where we're doing the same thing but blind. But I do really enjoy that, and it was really cool to see how, especially for the Blair Athol and the Glen Moray, like the DNA is there throughout both of them, which is really cool.
That's what I was going to say, Evan, is like doing these showcases really helps you identify the DNA of spirits, even if you're not doing a solely distillery focused event like our Fetter Karen. That I thought was really helpful and really insightful, especially since their core line is so different as far as their maturation goes. This was really enjoyable for me and educational, and I hope I retain it after 8 whiskeys.
Yeah, I think this went better than I thought. I kind of reluctantly was like, someone suggested it. I don't have a better idea. Let's do it. I think it worked quite well. So I think those head-to-heads do work quite well as well. Anyway, I'm trying to watch the comments and keep this going. I don't think there's anything else to be said other than that the chocolate dip bacon is only an at Kensington thing. It doesn't travel well. So we're not going to be putting it in tasting kits anytime soon.
Is that a request? Because
yeah, that was in that did come up in the chat.
I mean,
I
there's
think
vacuum seal bags,
I
man.
think our BC brethren are feeling a little envious of that, but
Well, come on down.
I don't know that your province wants you to eat chocolate dip bacon.
No, that sounds like that doesn't get across the border. That's
No.
RCMP actually pull you over when you
Yeah,
take that over.
That's worse than like taking drugs or alcohol across the border.
That's
Chocolate
right.
dip bacon is a step too far. So anyway, thanks for joining us, everybody. Harmony, Evan, thank you for chiming in. I hope everyone's having a great summer. Hopefully we'll see some of you for our rare and old whiskey weekend in September. And if not, there will be virtuals of some of those tastings coming out. And if you like that Linkwood, the Glen Moray, either Glen Moray or that blended malt, you should buy a bottle because they're awesome. And yeah, that's all I got for tonight. So have a good night, everybody. Wherever you are, take care, and we'll see you soon.
Good night.
See you guys.